As promised, here we are again. You're going to need a servo and the dig conversion kit. You're going to also need a radio that has more channels than is offered with the stock radio. I'm using a DXC Plus. You could use a DX5, DX6C, even a DX3 if you have it, because you're going to need to operate the dig servo to switch that little gear boss to fully engaged, so all four turn, to out, where you lock up and out the back wheels so it drags them around and you can do tighter turns. It kind of sucks down the whole thing a little bit and also can help you pull over. Minimal parts to this. You're going to change some of the casing on the transmission to accommodate the extra piece that you have to add that has that gear mechanism. And with that being said, you also receive in the conversion kit the new drive shaft that you're going to have to use, which is a little bit shorter since you have stretched out the transmission. It's not too hard to do it. If you've built some kits, you're going to have a little bit of a leg up, but hopefully, even if you've never done anything like this before, this video will show you what it takes to install a dig conversion. Some of the 10.3s already come with this installed, but things like the base camp and a Coyote do not. It can simply be added if you like. Check out the rest of the videos. We did running videos with the stock. Me, Kirk, and Kelly went and ran it, gave our opinions on it. It did fantastic out of the box. It comes with a 10% overdrive, but they offer a extra 10%. So I did a 20% overdrive running video with some brass on the front and a video on how to install it. Check that out. And then now we've got this video for the dig conversion and we're gonna run it soon. I also installed a brushless motor in this, so there's not much left to do to this Coyote at this point. I'm still in the stock wheels. The Trepadors are working out for me amazing. What other upgrade would you like to see me do to this Coyote? Let me know in the comments below. Stick around to the end. You'll see how we program the DXC Plus. This is a fantastic radio. It's going to work with your minis that run on SLT protocol, as well as big stuff like the crawlers and bashers that run DSMR. So pretty awesome. Easy to set it up. And depending on where you orient the servo arm to operate the dig, the number values you select may be different, but this is what worked for me. And I'm going to point out the things to look out for. You just don't want to overstress the servo. The job that it has to do is a small range of movement, but the throw of the servo is more than that. So you're going to dial it down or up on one direction of that throw to get the job done without overstressing the servo. Check that out, man. We covered it all. And enjoy the running videos that we've already done on this, and be looking out because we're going to get out soon and play with this dig and show how nice a brushless upgrade with that FOC control can be on the rocks. Let's go. Step 1, remove transmission. We're going to go ahead and undo the drive shaft from the transmission. You're going to reuse all these screws. Unplug the brushed motor. The transmission should come right out. And there it is. And that's where we're doing the work. So this can go. And there's the drive shaft I loosened, and here's the other one still on. Not a huge deal. The next step is to take off the motor. And now we're going to take this cover off. The reason you're taking this cover off is because it does not have the preparations made for the rest of the transmission to be able to enable the dig. And you're going to reuse all this stuff. So now you're just going to take this off. And if you do it careful, you might save a little bit of work for yourself. But these bearings and stuff will have to be transplanted over. So not too bad. So we're just going to simply do that. And that goes in here. This one goes in there. And this one. Goes in there. And so now you don't need this one because it doesn't have any way to mount it to. So there are going to be some differences though now. So this gear comes out and gets replaced by this one. And the only thing we need out of here right now are the little screws. And there are a couple circlips which are going to have to happen, which are my least favorite thing of all time to deal with. So now this gear is getting screwed together with this one. And you need 4 of those tiny little screws. And you can see these teeth that are going to grab the dig unit. So this big bearing goes over it. And this will receive our drive shaft on the outside. This goes back in. And now we have to get this back in. it shows putting these two back in on the bottom, but they're not going to go back in yet because your case will go there. But make sure everything spins good and is shut tight. That's what you want. So now the next part of the assembly is going to be the rest of actually what makes this dig engage and work. So you've got a little bearing that goes in here, and that's from really the last illustration. This piece goes there. The dig gear business goes on there, and we have to get out some more of our plastic pieces. And here's the rest of the transmission case here. And this, which is going to grab the dig boss, gets screwed inside. You need to be able to see the teeth, so to say. And then that's going to go in here. But a bearing goes in there first. So put the bearing in there. Make sure it's all the way in. And then this goes in. And it will screw in from the back side. So now that you can see the bearing and that gear, what's going to make the dig work is in there. And the screws for that are going to be these short taper head screws here. And I'm going to Loctite them. Not a lot. Just a little. Alright, so that part is done. Now this assembly is going to trip some of you up a little bit right here. This goes in there. This goes on there first though, and then the circlip goes on there. And this, it doesn't matter which way you put it on. But the circlip that goes here is the tricky part. And they give you two, so you can afford to have one fly across the room. This is probably the trickiest part of any build. It's my least favorite thing. And once you get it on, it's on. And you'll never press it on with your finger. Least favorite of all time. And I got it. But this has to be in first. So this little gear boss right here, you can pull it out so you can get this in. And now everything's in. And what's going to happen is this pulls this out and goes back in. And that's what digs, that locks up that back axle. So this is in good, that's in. Now this goes on. The bearings and the boss are already in there. So that goes next, and this feeds through here, and then you can put on the black piece that's going to allow it to be maneuvered to do the dig. Pretty cool. Every time I build a base camp, this stuff is part of it. I always lock it out, but I always put this together with all of this. And then just, I don't use the dig, but I'm going to use it on this. So, and, you know, make sure everything spins. We got our lockout business working. So we've got only the front drive shaft going and the back is not moving. And then when you disengage it, there it is, it's moving. So we just got to make sure this bolts on nice. And everything moves as it should. There, click together good. This freely operates the dig. Awesome. Now we can screw this together, and it's going to take a couple of the long ones here. So, yep, these right there. And if you want to see a better, I mean, the manual for this dig conversion is pretty good, but look at the Basecamp Builders Kit transmission pages, and you can see a little better what the dig assembly is. And let's see, and it's a shorter one here in the top, otherwise you would be into the gearing and such. And every time I do something, I'll make sure everything is still doing what it should. So this should not be moving with the dig engaged, and with it disengaged back in, everything's spinning like it should. All right, now you cannot put on this little eyelet ahead of time. That has to go on. Okay. So this part is not necessarily super easy. But there's a flat spot on that shaft, and you're going to need it. But once you get it started, you're fine. I have had good success threading mine all the way down to where it runs out of threads. You're going to be able to use the servo to adjust what it needs to be. So that's cool. And now you're going to use this little screw that came in the kit and this tiny little standoff, because you have to put a peg on this. So that's what you're doing. So this screws into that. use this longer screw here. It's not a tapered head, it's a button head. And that's what's going to go here. And it's a 1.5. This is basically the handle or the lever to operate this dig function we've added. And again, I've built these transmissions, but I haven't done the servo part. So we're getting ready to do the servo part, and that requires this and these. And then there's hardware for the servo as well. So these are easy. These only go on one way. They notch in there. Again, the notch goes in the notch. And the battery's dead on my driver. And this is where the servo mounts. And the servo mounting is probably one of the last things I want to do, in a way, because I do not want to stress the servo, so I'm not going to have it hard mounted in necessarily right away. My fear is overdoing it. And then this goes right here. Fits on super nice. And it's short little button heads that will hold that in. SX10 is a dig servo that's used on the other vehicles as well that come with a dig installed as far as the 10.3s go. So there's a little extension and another little piece for the servo. Now this orients this way, where the arm is away from the transmission, away from the spur gear. So that will ultimately go in like this, and the servo will grab this and, you know, do what it needs to do. So it doesn't have to go that far. It just has to be able to engage, stay engaged, and lock out. Pretty clean. Pretty clean. So yeah, we're super close. But it makes sense to bind up and get the servo centered and stuff like that before I make big moves. I'm actually gonna go ahead and put the motor back on because we are there. So let's do that. And while I'm at it, I'm gonna put on a different motor altogether. I'm changing, the receiver's already a 5-channel receiver, so that's cool, but I'm gonna be able to get rid of this ESC and use it for something else, and use a 2-in-1 that I got. So I'm doing this on the Coyote while I'm at it. So we're going from brush to brushless. So I'm going to get rid of this pinion here. Oh my word. That's on there good. Alright, so the pinion's off. Don't need that motor. This is a 14 tooth pinion. We'll just go ahead and put it on here right now while we're at it. And of course the set screw goes on the flat spot. This actually fits through the plate on the spur, so that's no problem. And we're going to go ahead and put just a little dab Loctite on there. Tighten that down. And the motor gets installed. That these screws are going to be too long for this motor. And in that case you would need obviously shorter ones. See, the fact that it's tight before it's tight makes me nervous. So you can get shorter screws or you can add washers. What a nuisance. So what I'm going to do is steal these back. I think it's less critical that this bracket has button heads. I'm putting these tapered heads in here instead, and I'm going to use these if they're short enough for the motor. And those are going to be short enough. So that's a good compromise. They don't call it modeling for nothing. So, if you're putting the stock motor back on, you don't have to do any of this. If you're doing what I'm doing, you do. Because you don't want to destroy your 2-in-1 motor, whether it's Hobby Wing or Spectrum branded or any brand. You just want to be careful you do not destroy the inner workings and windings of your motor. And you always want to make sure your mesh isn't too tight, and think about where the wires are. Make sure they're facing the way you want them. Up is fine for me on this. I'm not going all the way tight yet. And then I can get the mesh close. And that's really about where it was stock as well. Now we can scoot it in and get the mesh right. I also want to slide out the pinion gear just a little bit. So it's in full contact with the spur. You don't want it tight, so you want them to fit inside each other, but not, there needs to be a little bit of wiggle, like you should feel it, just a little bit of wiggle. And sometimes it makes sense to go ahead and put a piece of paper or something in there, because when you do tighten things up, it sometimes changes the position of where it is when you checked it. Like it did to me. Now it's too tight. So I'm going to take my own advice here and run something through there. I'm doing a double piece of paper. I can hardly get the double in there right now. Now I can. So this is a lot of times how I'm going to set mesh on a basher as well. Okay, so now notebook paper doubled up. So the mesh is good. There's just a little tiny bit of wiggle, so there's not going to be a lot of stress on the engine motor. Just a little bit of wiggle. But they're fully engaged gear. And the motor turns fine, so my screws aren't too long inside the can itself. So that's cool. So now our cover can go back on. We're about ready to reinstall. And it's just 2 screws here. Definitely easier to do this outside of the vehicle. Now we're going to do this without putting it in the vehicle. I want to work on this dig without it being plugged in. So we're going to unplug the old ESC. Now we're going to bind it up to the new DXC Plus. And we can get our servo centered. There it is. Now the aux channel we have to assign. We're going to put it on the F switch. And we're going to make it 2 positions. Cyclic is active. Momentary inhibit. Now, it's the aux 1 position in the receiver, but it's aux 3 on the radio. And I've got it assigned to F. And it's cyclic. So no matter what, I can push it one direction and it will just keep on cycling, which is cool. So now we can put together the servo arm because we have it, and the servo goes again away from the transmission with the arm. So we'll go ahead and do that and get it in. And these little screws are what we're going to use, 1.5. And we've basically got the servo centered and everything the way we want it to be. Yeah, 22 servo, so that fit on. There's a 25 tooth adapter if necessary. So then we need our servo arm. And the V goes on the V of the adapter, and the spring goes in there. Then there is a cap that goes over all of it. So this is a Servo Sabre on the dig. And you can skip the spring and go with this big thing if you want. And I'm not going to do that. I'll go ahead and use the spring. And then this little 1.5 drives it down. And now we can see when we cycle this, it's moving way more than it really needs to. So we're going to go ahead and just mock this up. Before we screw it up, we're going to mock it up. Okay. So now this is where you're going to get in travel adjustment and stuff like that. So we know now that if we're on and we run this engine, we've got just the front going. And if we we need to go in farther on this. So we're going in travel adjustment. And we're going to push this, basically we're going to make this go in. So we're going to travel adjustment on the radio. So we can roll it in till it doesn't really go anymore. And we know we've got it. Now when I run the motor, now when we run it, we've got both our drive shafts going. And when I hit the dig, it's locked it out. Now, it's too far though. So we're going to go back into travel, and now we can relieve the stress on this. Perfect. Got it. Okay, so you can see that the dig servo is installed now. I have it set up on the F switch, 2-position cyclic. You're going to make the momentary say inhibit if you just want to be able to cycle it through. This is what I ended up with, and this is power to all 4 wheels. This disengages the gear and allows it to drag the back tires. Essentially, that is the dig. So you have to be careful when you're setting this up, and I would get the throw close before I bolt everything down so you don't over stress the servo and burn one out. Everything is free and clear. Right now the back wheels aren't moving at all, and then when I hit my F switch, everything sounds fine and the gear is fully engaged. And I've got powered all 4. So we have successfully installed the dig conversion kit. You also have to put on the shorter drive shaft that comes with the dig conversion kit because you've stretched out the transmission, and now that output drive off the transmission is closer to the rear diff. So the stock drive shaft is too long at this point. So the dig conversion kit does come with the shorter drive shaft that you're going to need, and links to all the materials we use to do this upgrade are in the description. Coyote. Now, one thing I did as well was I told the radio what I was working with. I'm doing 3 channels on this. And channel assign. So down here on 3, I set up the A3, and FX, it's the F switch is what I assigned to be the switch that operates my dig. I made it 2-position. Cyclic is active. That means I don't have to push it forward and back. I can just push it forward twice and it'll just cycle through. And I don't want it momentary. Once I put it in there, I want it to stay in there. And you can do it however you'd like. But it says aux3 here on the transmitter because that is the first one that's really available to you. So that is the dig install on the Coyote. I happen to also put a brushless motor in here at the same time. I've got an 1800 Hobbywing 2-in-1 that I put in, but this job is really all about the install. So right now you can see I've got powered all 4 wheels as they're spinning, and if I do my F switch, now the back tires don't spin, and that is going to be great for out on the trails. You can see how it kind of draws that center of gravity down just a little bit when you pull on it. Pretty cool. If it ever stays in dig, go backwards just a little bit. You might want to play with the travel adjustment. And that travel adjustment numbers, it's not necessarily going to be that every time. I like to plug in the servo, power it up, and when I installed this, I had this arm a little bit leaning towards the transmission because I know all the way in is fully engaged for all four to go. And so that's what my thought process was. And I'm so glad to have brushless in this now. This rig is really ready to go. I have 20% overdrive because I did the overdrive upgrade, which there's a video if you want to see how that's installed. Threw a little bit of brass on the front, got brushless 2-in-1, and now the dig. So where was I? Where was I? Camera ran out of battery on the outro. What in the world? Where did I leave off? I was there. We were done. It was wrapped. It's a long video. If you made it this far, you're absolute boss. Give it a like and all that stuff. These tutorial videos are not glamorous. They're not fun. I was going to do the work anyway. I'm glad to provide the value. If you did get any value out of this, absolutely do the YouTube things, like, give it a comment, whatever. Share it out to any of your buddies that may be interested in this conversion. This is a 10.3 conversion, so it's going to apply to Basecamp and other Axial 10.3s, regardless if it's portal or straight axle. I'm Ryan. Kelly and I go live Saturday nights, 9 o'clock Eastern time. Come join us, ask your questions, ask questions in the comments, all that stuff. Let's do this. Been messing around on YouTube since 2012, and I enjoy this. And if there's anything I can do to help you, or you want to see more done to this Coyote or any of the other killer rigs, done a lot of 3D printing lately on custom bodies, just let us know. Airplane questions too. All right, we'll see you. Appreciate it.